All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about the power of behavioral based automation. You are in module 3, and in this module, we're going to talk about the power and importance of automation. We'll start by talking about automation, then we'll talk about how it should be done with a few examples and why it's absolutely so powerful. So let's talk about automation first. What's so important about automation and what really is automation, right? So your typical setup when it comes to your autoresponder is very simple, right? You have your landing page, and when people opt in, they start getting sent email 1, email 2, email 3, and so forth. And that's just the way that email has always been. That's called a drip or an autoresponder. Now, when we talk about automation, we start to think about that next level. Remember, we talked about the importance of being personalized, the importance of being able to nurture a lead, right? So creating a time in which it's fully automated, right? You save time for yourself. When a person comes into your lead magnet or your opt-in, you're going to save time with a fully automated email marketing funnel. Plus, you're going to be able to nurture your leads better. I'm talking about keeping the business on top of their mind with your subscriber. Next, you're going to be able to send emails based on their actions, their link clicks, their opens, their locations, their GeoCities. I mean, it can be endless when it comes down to it. We'll talk about that more later on in the segmentation module. You can also sort and segment your list. We just talked about that. And last but not least, you'll be able to send more relevant and personalized emails. So let's talk about how email automation works, okay? So when a person enters your email, so Sally, Sue, and Joe open your email and they opt in to your email and they come in. It automatically sends that email and you can start sending conditions based around it. We can subscribe into different lists. You can add tags, whatever you want it to do. Now, remember, why is behavioral-based marketing automation so important? And we'll jump into details here next when it comes down to that next part. But why is it so important? First, it's more user-focused and approaches the way you send email. That means that you are working on that one-on-one approach and being able to confuse and being able to communicate with that person. Sending email campaigns based on actions where your subscribers take when interacting with your emails. Think about that. When they are telling you what they want to learn about and what they want to hear about more, it's allowing you to go through that. Send emails with content that speaks to the wants and needs of each subscriber. Think about that. You are letting them talk to you and you're communicating with them. And by captivating their customers in the right moment, delivering relevant information, brands are witnessing higher conversion rates and increasing customer loyalty. And that's from Forbes.com. That's a magazine. They're telling us that having that behavioral based is very, very important. So let's talk a little bit deeper about automation and where it really works, okay? So now let's talk about it. And I like to compare this because it's the easiest way to really show and talk about this when you're doing your typical email. And let's start off with talking about how this really works. So your typical welcome series is very simple. Immediately you send an email, 24 hours you send an email number 3, 24 hours later, etc. Right? Pretty straightforward. That's how you think about email marketing and automation. Now, let's talk about how you're going to be able to do a behavioral based automation where it's going to actually present and maximize that connection and being able to communicate them as much as possible. Okay? Now, follow through with this. This might be a little confusing, but you might have to sit there and go through it a couple times. So the right process with automation is very simple. So you send that first email just like you normally would, but you add a conditional check. Did the subscriber open email number 1? If they did, all right, let's go ahead and wait 23 hours and send them email number 2. But no, they didn't open that emails. All right, well, let's send email number 1 and let's repeat different subject line, different content. Try to get them on a different email. Now, let's follow on the yes path first, okay? So we're looking at the yes path, okay? On the yes path, let's send email number 2 and then let's send email number 3, find a different way. Now it's time to deploy a response. So you either apply a tag or tell it to go to a different workflow, whatever it may be, and start sending them through a different path. But let's say they haven't opened that email and you sent them that first one and their second one and they haven't opened it. Well, now it's important to see how we can communicate with them, okay? So if they did not pick an email, then we're going to say, all right, let's wait another 12 hours and check if they've opened another email. That email could be anything, but the whole idea and goal is to make sure you're communicating with them. So now if you think about this, you sent an email immediately. Then 1 hour later, you checked if they opened that email because it's the most crucial time, and they haven't, so you sent them email number 2. And at this point, you've waited 12 more hours and said, hey, did they open email number 2? If they did not, then you need to go ahead and send them another email. So now you communicate with them 3 times in 12 hours or 13 hours, and the goal is very simple. You wanted to see if they're communicating or they're listening to you. Now, what you're going to do from there is you're going to check if they opened email number 2, and if they didn't, then you need to figure out what you can do. You need to communicate with them. You need need to try to email them personally. Maybe you need to figure out what it is, apply a tag, and so forth. Now, think about what I just said. I just went through a process of human behavior where I sent them an email 3 times because they didn't open that email 3 times, not because you wanted to send them 3 times, but to make sure that you're standing in front of their inbox. Now, things can happen. This is not always perfect. There is a human element to it. So maybe they opted in and they went on vacation, or they had to go to work, or they went to sleep. It could be anything. But remember, most of the times people are aware and understanding and listening. So it's always important to make sure you do it. Let's do another example because I think it's really, really important for thinking about this. And this will be the second and last example that I give you with workflow. And you want to be as creative as you can be to making sure that you are offering the best workflow experience that you can. So typically typical email is very simple. So let's say I want to sell someone something. So I call that an upsell or a recommended product, right? So day 1, you're going to send an email number 1. Then you're going to say, hey, don't forget to upgrade or don't forget to purchase this. Day 2, you send a second email, upgrade, purchase. At day 3, you send another email, so forth, right? Pretty standard, pretty easy. But what if you can put yourself in a better workflow situation? So think about this, okay? When you think about automation workflow, you send that first email to upgrade, buy, purchase, recommend, whatever, and then you add a little conditional check. Did the person upgrade, yes or no? If they did not, or they did, let's start with the first. If they did purchase, then you want to stop emailing them, apply a tag to them, and you can go ahead and say, we're done. We can go to the next workflow, whatever the content piece is, whatever it may be. But no, they didn't. Then you want to wait X hours, usually 24 hours, and then deploy the second email, right? Then you do the second conditional check, right? Did they open, yes or not, right? So then from there you go, all right, great. Yes, they purchased and cancel, tag, move to workflow, no more emails. If no, then it's time to figure out deeply why that person didn't do it. Did person open email number 1 or email number 2? If they did, then you need to completely come up with a completely different angle. But if they didn't open that email, then you know they're not even listening to your emails, or they're not receiving your emails, and it's time for you to take a different approach as well too. So what you're doing is you're communicating and personalize that continuous experience for that person without ever feeling like the person did or did not receive. So think about that really deeply when you're sending these emails, because it's important that you're thinking, hey, you're not only communicating with them, they're letting you know back that they're not interested. They're opening those emails. So imagine this. They open 2 emails or 3 emails and you just continue to send the same type of emails to them. What are the chances that that 4th or 5th email is going to make them want to pull out their wallets and spend? Chances are they're not going to. But if you're able to come with a completely different angle, hit them differently, well, you'll be able to talk to them and communicate very differently. All right. So that's the power of behavioral-based automation. Think about what I just explained to you. I explained to you why it's so powerful, how you're supposed to use it, and according to some examples that you can be using to set up your automation to maximize that experience for that person. So think about that as you're going through this. That was the behavioral-based automation. I hope that opened your mind up why automation is so powerful. It's here to stay in 2018, 19, 20, 21, and forward. So these are things to keep on thinking about and keep on using. Make sure you're applying this to your marketing, and I'll see you on the next module.